So this is really aimed at those few of you who were willing to raise your hands and say they still use start command. Yeah. This is a lightning talk, so there's not much to the overview. Start command doesn't like you. There you go. So again, how many of you use start command? A fair number. Oh, not as many as admitted it earlier. Wow. I've already convinced some people. This is awesome. And how many? Yes.
But I think there is a distinction. You may want to ask how many are using start command with the newer versions of the DITA-OT because they don't have an
Right.
option.
Yep. You don't have an option with the earlier ones. Yes. Yeah. With 1.5. And I'll mention that later. Granted, if you're not using 2.0, you don't really have another option. And how many of you actually use the DITA command? A few more than use start command, but not many more. Okay. I'll say I wrote, a blog post about start command that I put up just a couple of weeks ago. And so this is really an overview of that. If you read that, there was a lot of detail in it. If you read all of that, fully internalized it, take a nap for 5 minutes. But otherwise, DITA-OT 1.0, back when it was originally released. This was in the setup instructions. You had to set environment variables. You had to set a lot of them. You had to obtain tools. You had to get the right version of tools. How do you think that went over? Toolkit 1.0. Anybody in here was actually using the toolkit back in 1.0? Only 3 hands are up. Wow. Oh, 4. Okay. And Elliot, I know you use it, but that would make 5. You didn't do, oh, wow. Okay. So a few. So basically, what the toolkit was an empty toolbox. It had some pieces you might need in the bottom, but none of the actual tools were there. What's that? With a lot of bugs. Well, yes, it was 1.0. It was beta, really, maybe. It had what I would call like the nails and the screws without the hammer and the screwdriver. It had the things you need for the program, but nothing to make it run. A lot of people were alarmed by that. Everyone in the building who got it, I think, was upset. No one liked that. The very first DITA conference, I think I had probably half the people there pull me aside and say, why do we have to do this? Well, it's because it was scripted together by a few developers out on IBM Developer Works, and then all of a sudden they said, bang, it's an open source project. So I don't remember when start command was added. It was 1.2, 1.3, somewhere, probably about 7 or 8 years ago. 1.4, I swear I found a 1.3 release note or release package that still had it. But anyway, it was a long time ago. So start command was a batch script that basically said, here are the tools. They're shipping with the toolkit, but they're not integrated. They're not part of it. They're just sort of dropped in. And so you ran start command to say, here's this tool, here's this tool, here's this tool. Now I know how to do stuff. So yeah, it's like you got the original toolbox, and then there's tools sitting next to it. It's not integrated. It's not one package. So what's wrong with that? It's hiding the original problem. It doesn't make everything work nicely together. The toolkit still doesn't work without setting lots of environment variables every time you use it. It's just that the batch script kind of hid that. But you can't use the toolkit without running the batch script every time. I am aware that some people would copy the batch script to some other directory. They'd make a copy of it, and it would do everything and then call a specific build for a specific map. That's like, you copy it, and it knows where the hammer and screwdriver are, but if the next release requires a drill, your batch script has to change. It's broken. So it's not useful. When I first posted this blog script, this blog thing, it was, I think, a day or two from when Twitter changed the stars to hearts, and I realized that a lot of people really thought of start command as heart command. People got really attached to it. Because for so many years it was impossible to set up the toolkit, and all of a sudden this made it look easy. But how should it work? You should get a fully stocked toolbox where everything's in the right place and it just works. You don't have to go searching for things. You don't have to assemble your toolkit every time you want to use it. Oh, wrong button. And so that's what the DITA command does. And this came from Jarno. This is Jarno being annoyed with the start command shell for years. finally deciding to do something about it. And in DITA-OT 2.0, he released the DITA command. It knows where all the tools are. It knows where to find them. It has very simple shortcut options for your most common options, your input file, your output directory, your format, even DITA-val, a couple others. You still have access to all the old parameters using that ugly old ant syntax, the same thing you had used previously. But it knows where to find things. You can call it from anywhere on your computer. All you have to do is know where that toolkit exists. You call it with a path. You can update environment variables so that from anywhere on your computer, you just type DITA, and that means run the toolkit. Or you can just point to the toolkit itself. And again, it continues to work if next year's toolkit needs a whole lot more tools. If you've set up a batch script that just runs the DITA command, that's going to keep working from release to release. Even if we require new jar files, even if we require lots of new tools. That was the lightning talk, much faster than the other one, as promised. There is a blog post on this on metadata.org, start command. It's separated into two parts because I started to write it and then I realized this is way too long for anybody to read, so I'd better make it two and then they'll be tricked into reading both. The first one is really the history of the command, why it was created and why it was not necessary. The second one is actually just tutorials. If you use the command, if you use the toolkit in this way, here's how to adapt to the DITA command. Hopefully those are useful. Any questions? And as mentioned earlier, sorry, if you are on a version older than 2.0, you are stuck right now. There is no DITA command before DITA-OT 2.0. But DITA-OT 2.0 is a year old now, so everybody should be moving up, right? Nobody waits more than a year to update, says the guy who's got a copy of iTunes running that's 4 years old. Anyway, yes, Elliot.
My question is actually a cheeky question.
Uh-oh.
Is why the DITA command is not in the root directory of the
Yarno?
So the reason I asked that question is because that's why I can't think of the root directory because I mean it's DITA, but it's also because the start command that is part of the root directory. So
Which I think Yarno always considered a mistake.
well,
But
sure.
yeah.
But if you naively install a toolkit,
Agreed. Yep. So I will say that when I first used the toolkit with the DITA command, before 2.0 came out when I was testing it, I think I made that same mistake, and that was over a year ago, so I'd forgotten it. And so it was not a big learning curve, to remember to type bin/DITA instead of DITA. And so it just became my habit to do that. But you're right. It might be something that people need to know. Yeah, I think from Yarno's perspective, nothing should be in that root directory except perhaps the license, and that's about it. But
Okay, any other questions?
all
Thank
right.
you, Robert.
And next we have Rob. No, I'm not.